my biggest question was, why did my mom give me up? You have a choice. Do you want to be a victim or do you want to be the victor? Maybe it's the big empath in me, that just wants to help people. I don't know. I think it's also because I know that I went through a very, very challenging childhood. And I'm like, I want people to know that there's people out there who can help. I never really thought of, when I was a kid, never really thought of what I wanted to do. The strange way, you're going to laugh at this, the strange way I chose my career journey when I finished school was,
Welcome to Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and the reason I launched this podcast is to create a ripple effect of optimism that reaches 1 billion people in the next decade. Ambitious? Very. Scary? A little bit. The aim of Present Potential is to empower listeners by sharing stories of individuals who've turned challenges into opportunities, proving that we all have untapped potential. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you've tuned in before, thank you for your support, and I hope you find value in these conversations. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and I'm so thankful and grateful for everyone who's tuning in and joining us and messaging and continuing to engage with us in our conversations in this podcast. Today, we have a guest, and I'm really excited to talk to our guest today. So I'm going to introduce the guest, as I usually do, and then we'll take the conversation from there. So today I'm thrilled to welcome Janet Meintjes. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly, to Present Potential. Janet is a senior recruiter, business partner at Dentsu International, and she has over 20 years of experience in talent management across industries like HR, finance, tech, and media. She's not only a certified life and success coach, but she's also a mental health first aider, and she's also an ambassador to mental health. She's committed to creating inclusivity, supportive workplaces, and supports the people that she corresponds with. I first met Janet during our coaching journey, and I've been inspired by her resilience and commitment to make a change and actually acting on it. Without further ado, Janet, welcome to the podcast.
thanks, Hassan. Thanks for that nice intro. Really kind of you. And I feel honored to be on the podcast with you. Thank you very much for accepting, my reach out.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to dive in. And before we do that, I'm so sorry if I pronounced your last name incorrectly. I just realized that I didn't ask you before how to pronounce it.
That's okay. It's a challenge for most people, unless you're South African. But here in the UK, we basically say Meintjes. But if you're in South Africa, you'd say Meintjes. So
Oh, amazing. So maybe
yeah.
we could start with that. So obviously we know each other, but I would love to hear how you would describe yourself. Who's Janet?
Oh, Janet is, besides being a mother, a grandmother, a friend, a coach. I ex-military. Um, I'm just somebody that likes helping people. I like to see people thrive, and I like to see people develop. And a lot of the times, I like backing the underdog. Giving people a chance who wouldn't otherwise be given a chance. So that's what I like.
Amazing. Sounds there's so much that we can unpack there. And you mentioned how you pronounce your last name in the UK and then in South Africa. So can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? And then we'll get into all the interesting details.
Oh, so originally from South Africa, hence the South African accent. I was in the military probably for about 11 years. I've been in sales, PA, recruitment for too long. And I stayed in South Africa for 36 years, and then I relocated to the UK, and I spent a number of years here. My children and my grandchildren are here. I did take another stint and went back to South Africa for 6 years, and returned to the UK. I went back. I was adopted, found some of my biological family, which was a very interesting, great journey. And yes, I'm glad to be back in the UK, although I must admit I do miss the sunshine. I'm not really one for -5, -6, and cold Christmases. I prefer having a braai or a barbecue, as most people would call it, on the beach for Christmas, than sitting indoors, trying to wrap up warm. So that's sort of in a nutshell who I am and where I've come from.
Wow, thank you for sharing with us. And it sounds like a very diverse background in terms of like the experiences and also the relationships that you had. And you mentioned that you were adopted and then you went back and you visited your biological parents. How was it for you when you were in school, or like when you started in education and started seeing what people are doing, and even like your peers or friends or relatives, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
Wow. It's I never really thought of, when I was a kid, never really thought of what I wanted to do. The strange way, you're going to laugh at this, the strange way I chose my career journey when I finished school was I went to an all-girls school for the latter part, for my high school, and we had the military services come and visit us. So we had, Army, Navy, Air Force come and visit us, and I was like, they all stood in front of the auditorium talking about their whatever they do. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this should be interesting. And I thought, brown uniform? Nah, don't like a brown uniform. I thought, white uniform? That's going to get dirty. And I thought, I like the blue uniform. And that's literally, and I was like, maybe I should try this. And I literally sent an application in, and I was invited for an interview, which was very daunting. It's probably one of the most daunting interviews I've ever had. I was 18 years old, and there was a panel, probably about 10 people. And it's like psychologists, and it's every kind of like, you've got the Air Force, the Army, as well as the Navy. And they're all sitting there, and you're like, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? You're like really nervous. And they are, 1 minute they'll talk to you in English, the next minute they'll talk to you in Afrikaans, because they split it to see how you cope with, just change and things like that. So I had that interview, which was quite intense, and I had to just wait and wait and wait. And then eventually I got a letter to say that I was accepted. But they were quite strict back in the day, that's many years ago, where they only selected a small amount of individuals to join, and you don't choose the mustering that you go into. They select it for you according to the IQ tests that you do, and the psychometrics and all the rest of it. So I turned up on my first day at the military camp. We're going to be doing basic training now, and then they kind of like split you into groups, and they say, right, you're going to go into communications. And I was like, so you could become a chef, you could go into the band, you could be in the medics. They select where you go into. So they put me into communications, and then I became a cryptographer. So, doing all the encoding and decoding and things like that. So I ended up doing that for 10, 11 years. So yeah, that's how I decided to go into the military, by the color of the uniform. I mean, how random is that?
So blue is probably your most preferred color from those
Ugh.
three, and even now. And that must have been some experience, like going into a panel at 18 and feeling like all of those questions and still remembering how daunting it was to go through
Yeah.
that entire process and the psychometric and IQ tests and all these questions. And then being placed in what they think is the best fit for you. And once you went into communication and also like doing what you were doing, I have no idea what it is. So if it's okay, we could also touch on that. But how did you feel that it matched what you wanted to do?
I think I was still a little bit naive. It was like, okay, they've told me what to do. The way I was brought up is you listen to your peers, or you listen to your adults, and those that are older than you. You just go with the flow. And I was like, okay, if that's what they said I must do, that's what I'm going to do. And my
Mm,
dad was in the military also at a young age, and we were very disciplined at home. This is my foster father, by the way.
mm,
Very disciplined at home. So if you get told to do something, you do it, and you just go with it. So I just think I was very naive. And I think after probably a couple of years, when I joined, I thought I'm not going to be there longer than 5 years, and then I'm going to leave.
mm,
Well, the 5 years turned into 11 years, because what happened is I ended up nominating myself for every course that came along, and I just kind of like superseded all my peers, and then I got to a point where I couldn't go any further. And I was like, okay, well,
mm,
I was too ambitious, and I was like, okay, I need to find something else to do now.
mm,
So I ended up going from being a cryptographer, so like encoding and decoding, all these messages, and when they were at war and all these kind of things, to sales. It's like absolutely insurance sales. It's like from one extreme to the next. I mean, there's absolutely there's no synergy there. Because one of my ex bosses from the Air Force, he left, and he said, "Oh, come work for me." When I said I was starting to look, and I was like, "Sales, insurance sales. Oh, I'm not so sure about that." And I joined him, and I smashed it. It was like I was always like under the top five consultants, literally month on month, and then after a year and a half, I got bored. I was like, "Nah, don't want to do this anymore." And I was like, "Okay." And then I joined a company, and I became a PA, and I was like, this is not me. I smashed it as well, but I was like, I'm too restricted. I felt like, no disrespect to PAs, because I think they do an amazing job, but it's either right for you or it's not. And I was like,
mm,
nah, I need something more to stimulate my brain. And then from there, I joined a company, and I did insurance claims and all sorts of things, international insurance claims, did that for a while. And then I walked into a company called Kelly Girl, and I know there was a Kelly here in the UK as well. And they said, "Do you want to go into recruitment?" And I'm like, I don't know. And I was like, it's not something that you choose. I think most people who are in recruitment, you fall into it. You don't really go out and say, I want to become a recruiter. Um, 5 interviews later, then yes, I became a recruiter. Um, and I became assistant branch manager. Then I ended up leaving, coming to the UK, and I became a resource business partner for one of the big rail companies, and they relocated. And then I went back into an agency called Reed, and they kind of said, "Oh, do you want to, join us?" Numerous interviews later, yes, joined them. Um, and I was there for a number of years, and then I was headhunted into another company, worked with the Curve Group, relocated back to South Africa, did a couple of things there, and then I came back to the UK 2019, just as COVID hit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and that was like, oh my goodness gracious me. So I got here, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do for work? Because nobody was really working. So I was doing little temp jobs here and there. And then I just kind of like started picking up again. and I've been working now with Dentsu for 3 years, end of this month. So yeah, it's been a journey, but it's been an enjoyable one. You know, it's like any occupation you have good days and you have bad days. You know,
Yeah,
and trying to have the more good days than bad days. So,
absolutely.
and I love working with people. You get frustrated, but I love working with people. You know, I think I've said to you before, people are unpredictable. You know, so and that's probably the challenge, but at the same time, the joy about it because you do meet some really, really interesting people.
Yeah. And congratulations on your 3-year anniversary. That's coming up next month. And it sounds so diverse. Like I love the way that you approach different industries and jobs and trying and experimenting and following like different people that you've met along the journey as well. And if we can go back to like being in communication and as a cryptographer and
Photography, yeah.
cryptography, and you were encoding and decoding. What does that mean? Like what is the
Well,
job?
the
Like,
easiest
what-
the easiest way to explain it is literally um, handling secret and top secret messages.
Mm,
So and dealing with that within the military. So
wow.
yeah, so yeah, you get a message and then you've got to encode it and then you send it off to wherever you need to send
Oh
it,
wow.
or you receive one that's encoded and then you have to decode it
Mm,
to distribute it to the relevant parties and things like that.
wow. That's so fascinating. And then you said after that you went into sales in insurance and you were smashing it. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there's like a relationship by decoding just the English language and then sales and people.
Yeah, I think it's just I don't know. I suppose it's just dealing with people, you know. And I think I've just had the ability to get on with all walks of life, you know, and be it a positive or negative. But I never look at people with a title.
Mm,
You know, if you told me you're a CFO, then I'll be like, but who is the person?
mm,
You know, I'm not talking to a title. I'm talking to the person. And I think a lot of people become afraid when they say, "Oh, I've got to go and speak to, you know, the MD or whatever." And I'm like, "You're
yeah,
speaking to a person. You know, take the title away. Who is that individual? You know, because there's a personality behind that.
yeah,
There's a lot of people that hide behind titles because they might be afraid to open themselves up and things like that. But I always try and look beyond titles and status. I'm not a status person. Never have been, and I don't think I ever will be. You know, because everybody's unique, everybody's different, and wherever I can, I try as much as possible. I want to treat people the same way that I want to be treated.
mm,
Um, and I try and follow that as much as I can.
that's amazing. Yeah.
And when it comes to sales, I am not. There's one thing that I was always told that I'm not a pushy. I don't like pushy salespeople. If I have somebody that's a pushy salesperson to me, I literally switch off.
Mm,
I automatically just go in. I have. It's like something's just switching up. I don't hear what you're saying. If you say,
yeah,
"Oh yeah," I'm like, no. I like a consultative approach, and you either want to work with me or you don't.
yeah,
You know, and I would never force anything on anyone because that's not the way you have a collaborative relationship or partnership.
yeah.
So
That's
maybe
so
it's just
true.
me
And
and people.
it it sounds so counterintuitive, especially in sales, because from like what I've experienced and seen and also watched some videos about what sales is like, and it's trying to force feed other people to buy things. But where you're
Yeah,
saying it's more about not selling whatever it is that you're selling, but it's really developing that relationship and creating a connection with the person.
yeah.
Because like there's the titles don't really they matter, but it's a person at the end of the day that's behind those titles and who they are.
Absolutely true. And if I mean, it's proven people buy from people. You
Mm,
know, if you like the person that is presenting to you or selling to you and you feel comfortable, I always have, if your gut is telling you no, then no, you know. And there are so many people out there that's, oh, I just bought it to get rid of them. And you're like, why? You should have
yeah,
just said no thanks and closed the door, you know. Um, Not everybody's that strong or that resilient, you know, but it is connection, people, you know. So yeah.
so true. And then, so once you went through all those different careers in South Africa, and you then relocated to the UK, how come you decided to go to the UK?
I got married to a British person, and so hence I relocated here. So I stayed here for a number of years, and then I ended up getting divorced, and I moved back to South Africa, and I am remarried now with um, my ex fiance from the Air Force back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so um, it's so weird. When I went back to South Africa, we kind of connected and just kind of like picked up where we left off.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so we kind of got married, and he's now in the UK as well. Not enjoying the cold weather, but you know, so because we come from the coast where the weather is, you know, in the winter you just wear a silly little jersey, or you know, there's no scarves and boots and hats and gloves or anything like that. So it was a bit of an adaptation for him, but yeah, we are together.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on that. Sounds like there's a romantic and love story in all of the
Yeah,
history,
no,
like
yeah, no, there was.
connection.
I mean, I think we had like a 25-year gap or 28-year gap or something, and we got
Wow,
back together again. So yeah.
that's incredible. Well, congrats. I'm really
Oh,
happy for you.
thank you. So yeah,
And
so
so then in the
interesting.
UK, and you you went back in 2019. Well, you went to the UK, then you went back to South Africa, and then you relocated to the UK again just before COVID and everything changed. How was that experience? Like going back and starting all over
It
again the
was,
second time?
yeah, no, it was a challenge, but it was good. You know, like I said, I found some of my biological family, and I got to meet them. Unfortunately, I never got to meet my parents because both of them have passed away. But it
Mm.
was nice to connect with cousins, and then I found out I had more siblings, and I got to meet them,
Oh,
and um, that was quite a journey as well. You know, and I always say to people, when you go on a journey like that and you're looking for any lost family, or if you're adopted, go with the intention of having no preconceived ideas,
mm,
or you know, and because I think a lot of people, what happens is they will oh, it's going to be a fairy tale and all this, and then if they're disappointed, they really hurt.
yeah,
um so I literally went with a blank slate, and I was like, you know what, if I like these people, I like them. If I don't, I can walk away. They haven't been part of my life. I just want to know who I am. And I've been absolutely blessed. I mean, I've got such a big family now. It's like crazy. And I'm sure there's more that'll come out of the woodwork. But, you know, for now, I just need to, you know, love the people that are in my circle right now, and appreciate them.
yeah,
But it has been an adventurous journey, to say the least. But
yeah.
it's been
I,
great.
I don't know how it must feel, but like I love what you shared about managing expectations. That's what it sounded to me. So instead of going with like a thinking that things will go a certain way and then feeling disappointed or sad because they
Yeah.
didn't go in a certain way, just have that blank slate and see what happens. And it's like you said, I've been living without them, so let's see. Maybe it's great, maybe it's not. And how was it once you met your siblings? What was that experience like?
Well, my siblings, funny enough, I only met them like 3 years ago,
Oh
but
wow.
the rest I met probably about 9, 10 years ago, something like that. Um, and that was overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. It was super emotional. I don't know if you've ever heard of a TV program. It's here in the UK called Long Lost Families.
No, I
So,
haven't.
but it was like an episode of that. Every time I watch that, I end up crying, and I'm like, I know exactly how they feel, just because I've been there, and because I'm quite an empathetic person. If I see somebody hurt, I want to literally start crying. I am so sensitive with regards to that. I can feel other people's pain. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I'm not sure. Sometimes yes, sometimes I'm like, okay, this is feeling a little bit heavy now.
Yeah,
But it was super overwhelming, but so rewarding at the same time.
yeah.
And because my biggest question was, why did my mom give me up? I knew I didn't feel resentful towards her, but I
Yeah.
knew there was a valid reason. I just wanted to know, who is she? What happened? And she was just very, very sickly. She couldn't look after us. My biological father was an alcoholic, and he literally abused us and all the rest of it. And my mom was in and out of hospital all the time, and she just couldn't cope. So hence she gave us up, and the rest of the family didn't have the funds to kind of keep us in the family. So we were given away for adoption. But I mean, I had an amazing dad, well, amazing foster parent, my dad in particular, and I'll be forever grateful to him for what I've achieved, what I've done. Looking back at my siblings, because my biological father obviously divorced and remarried, and those siblings, they had a tough time, really tough time. And I'm like, I was blessed. I was truly, truly, truly blessed to be taken out of that situation, both my brother and I, and to be brought up differently. So I'm forever grateful for that. So
Wow.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing with us. And
that's
I,
okay.
I, I don't know what to say. I'm just so grateful that you're in a position where you're so grateful and blessed to be
Yeah.
experiencing things and how they went. And your foster father sounds like an incredible man, like just taking someone else and raising them as their own. And I see it in my kids as well. Like I'm their biological father. And I'm wondering, like, if they were not my biological kids, would I ever have that connection? And I wonder that, like, when I see them and I see other kids, and I remind myself, like, we were all kids at some point, and
Mhm.
we just wanted to be loved and authentic and play and just be ourselves. And external circumstances and people who go through their own journeys and might be suffering through their own ways, but then punishing the people that they're raising and bringing into this world and hurting them as well in that way. I mean, it's so incredible to hear that story, and I'm really thankful for you for sharing that. There's so much
Oh,
strength there.
no, it's a pleasure. I always tell people, because I mean, I went through a lot in my life, but I always tell people, you know what? And not everybody can do this, because not everybody's strong enough or resilient enough. But I always say, you have a choice. Do you want to be a victim,
Mm,
or do you want to be the victor?
mm,
And a lot of people tend to blame their circumstances on how they've turned out. And I'm like, but you're the one that can change that trajectory.
yeah,
You're the one that can say, okay, well, I've had a really, really tough life, but do I need to continue with it? No matter how
yeah,
hard it is to keep one foot in front of the other, small little positive changes every day can make such a difference, you know,
yeah,
but you need to believe it in yourself and want it. That's the other
yeah,
thing, is if you don't have that desire to change, you will never change. If you just want to be, the couch potato that just watches people go by, and you don't have that energy, that passion, that desire to change, then you will never change. But then you can't blame yourself or blame anybody else
Yeah.
if your circumstances are dire and saying, oh, it's my mother's fault or my father's fault, and you'd be like, it's your fault. The buck stops here. That's the way I look at life. And that's
Yeah.
why when I went on the journey of looking for family, I was like, I either like them or I don't. And in my head, no matter how painful it is, if it's not what I want, I'm going to close the door and walk away. I don't
Yeah.
need to be in their life, or they don't need to be in my life if I don't want them to be.
Yeah.
And I think as you grow older, just life in general, it's up to you to decide, which positive people do I want in my life? Who's draining my energy? If they're draining too much of my energy, it's like, thank you. Let's move on to the next person. That's kind of, I think that just comes with, all the challenges that I've had and life experience. And you get to a point and you say, do I need to be drained or do I need to be energized?
Yeah.
And it's your choice.
I love that. And being the victim or the victor and deciding on how to approach that. And like there's so much wisdom there as well. And I'm wondering, like, when was the time that you realized that you have that choice to decide that you're going to be the victor?
Um, that was in my probably in my early, I'd probably say early 20s or late 20s, around about there. I started thinking, okay, I need to slowly start changing things. It took a little while because I went through a lot of drama when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But it took a little while. But I think, as the years went by, you just kind of think, okay, right, I'm putting my foot down now.
Mhm.
I don't want people to tell me what to do anymore. I will tell them what to do, but I don't want them to tell me, obviously, with respect and depending on circumstances and stuff like that. But I just realized, I think also when I left the Air Force, I was like, the world is my oyster. I don't want to stay here anymore. And then when I went into the sales, I was like, okay, I don't like this anymore. And I'm thinking, nobody dictates to me how long I need to stay somewhere.
Yeah.
It's my choice. I didn't like it. Right. Okay. I got on a plane and I came to the UK and I was like, when I got onto that plane, I was like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right? And I was like, it was daunting. I've
Yeah.
left everything behind. I didn't know anybody in the UK, and started again. Um, but that's a choice that each individual needs to make themselves. Where do you get, how much can you take before you make a change? How much do
Yeah.
you want to take before you make a change? Or are you just like, I'll just be the couch potato and just let life go by and just
Yeah.
blame everybody else?
That's so
Self-pity
powerful.
is also something which really, it doesn't sit well with me when people feel sorry for themselves. And I know that they could have changed their circumstances. I know that. And you just like, I don't have time to feel sorry for you. That probably
That's
sounds quite harsh, but it's reality check, isn't it?
it is. I completely agree, and I feel the same way as well, because at a certain point you start thinking that, oh, the world is all against me, and I wish this could have went differently, or oh, that person got something that I didn't get, so that's why they're like this and I'm like this. And by doing that, and I kind of went through that journey as well, you start losing a part of you and
Yeah,
start creating an identity that is completely attached to other people that are
yeah,
exactly who you want to be, but it's not who you are. And it's just realizing that you
exactly.
can take that strength. It's like the running a marathon or a half marathon. I mean, you're the one who's taking those steps, no matter how many
Yeah,
coaches you have or how many training sessions that you have. It's really putting one foot in front of the next. And those small steps, like what you said, it's just deciding and then changing
yeah,
it one small step at a time.
exactly. And nobody can make those decisions except you. And it's all in your own power.
Yeah.
Um, it is not up to your mother, your father, your brother, or who. It's only up to you. Do I want to make a change? Do I want to make a difference? And that's why, as like I say, I think it's just a question of life experience where I've got to a
Mm.
point where I want to see people thrive. I want to see people succeed. I like seeing success stories. I think you may have seen the other day, I put something on LinkedIn where being a mental health ambassador, I had the lovely message from this individual, and I felt like I was just at the right place at the right time, you know, and just a reminder that everybody's fighting some other battle, you
Yeah.
know. But it was so heartwarming because I thought I was able to help somebody, and that is what's important to me. Um, where I can help, wherever I can help, I will help. But obviously within reason. We're all human, you know. You can't help everybody, but wherever I can, I will do.
Yeah, that's so generous as well. And going into then recruitment with that mindset and the empathy that you have and helping others, how do you navigate your day to day and like connecting to people and trying to read their
I think
mindsets and personalities?
I think one of the things that I have been told a few times, and is when I connect with people, generally speaking, is I'm a very straightforward person, and I think that might be a South African trait. You know, South African trait is just being very straightforward, call a spade a spade. Um, but it's not meant to be offensive to anyone. And when I start engaging with people, if they reach out to me and I'm going to have a chat with them, I'll normally say to them, "Hey guys, disclaimer, I'm a South African. I'm very straightforward. Don't take any offense by what I say." You know, and I'm always, if I have somebody that's, for example, applied for a role and I see their CV is like, there's a little bit of interest in there, but their CV is not selling them. I'll
Mm.
say to them, listen, go away. This is what I want you to do. And I've had numerous occasions where I've had candidates come back to me and said, if I didn't change my CV, I wouldn't have had this job. And I'm saying to them, there's no perfect CV. There's always CVs better than others, but I need you we need to sell you, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I try as much as possible have, you know, good connections, because it's about building that rapport. For me, it is, they're not just a number, they're a person on the other side of the screen. Um, when I worked in high street agency, the dynamics is very different in a high street because they work on commission. And I'm not saying, I'm generalizing now, just in case anybody slates me, generalizing that it's very much a numbers game. But when you're working on an RPO or you're working on site, it is different. You know, there's a lot more stakeholder management, and, you know, collaboration with the hiring managers. And I say to them, I want this to be a partnership between the hiring manager and the candidate that comes on board. And yes, you do that with high street agencies too, but it's very much a numbers game. I'm more of a, I want to put quality. Like, I would rather put two CVs forward than put 10 in the hope that one hits.
Yeah.
That's how I try and work. Um, and I mean, the relationships that I've built with, I've got numerous stakeholders within Dentsu. I mean, I absolutely love working with them, and they'll ping me, and, you know, we just get it and we just
Mm.
connect. And those are the kind of relationships I really, really treasure.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I like, you know. I want to get to know people, because if you don't get to know them, then you don't, how can you do a good job?
Yeah.
But it's all about people,
It is. It's so
you
true.
know. It's all about people and connecting, and you'll always have people that you don't really gel with, and that's okay. That's okay, you know. There's people that might irk you, but that's also okay. It's just how you manage the relationships that you know, get into. So yeah.
That's lovely the way that you described it. And when you were sharing, what I'm hearing is that you're also decoding those people and then putting their sales attractiveness on CVs so that you can encode it for others to be able to see their strengths there. It's just so powerful to be able to realize like what's written between the lines and understanding those people and trying to help them. And it sounds as well like when you said you'd rather put it forward two CVs instead of 10, it's quality rather than quantity. And it's not
Yeah.
just because I just want some CV to stick. It's it's that care that you have that's just so clear when you're sharing the experiences that you do in recruitment. And
But
and I'm wondering as well, like once once you went into that space, because we also connected in the coaching school,
Mm.
um, what what made you want to go into coaching? Like, how come you decided to take that
I
route as well?
think I think I just wanted something. I think I wanted to get into something where, besides doing the recruitment helping, because that's kind of one avenue, if I can say that, and I was like, okay, I've done this for such a long time. And it's like, how else can I help people? Because what I also ended up doing is I ended up learning a little bit more about autism and things like that, and I thought, okay, I can maybe incorporate that somewhere in the recruiting world when neurodiverse, neurodiversion and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, what else can I do? And then I thought, one of my friends said, oh, what about coaching? And I was like, because I'm also a qualified counselor.
Hmm.
And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll, and yeah, I just decided, well, let's do it. And then after that one, after the one that we did, I did a confidence coaching qualification, and, just kind of like doing a couple of here and there, because I just like helping people. I don't know, you know, um, maybe it's the big empath in me, that just uh, wants to help people. I don't know. I think it's also because I know that I went through a very, very challenging childhood. And I'm like, I want people to know that there's people out there who can help. You
Yeah.
know, um, I was even helping out a charity in South Africa where I was counseling some traumatized children, you know, very young traumatized children. But it was close to my heart because I'd gone through some similar things, and I was like, there are people out there to help. I
Yeah.
just People just need to reach out. I mean, there's lots of things, and I know men in particular
Yeah.
struggle with mental health because they
Yeah.
think, oh, you're too weak and you shouldn't be showing emotion and you shouldn't cry and you shouldn't. And you're like, listen, you have got red blood in your veins like I have. You've got a pumping heart like I have. You've got
Mhm.
emotions. What makes you different? You're still human. And I must admit, I get really annoyed when I see people saying, oh, he's a man, he shouldn't be crying and he shouldn't be showing emotion. I'm like, one that does show emotion, I have a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
A lot. Because that is a true man, as far as I'm concerned. But that again is my own opinion. So, you know, um, but I think mental health is so important.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think slowly it's becoming a little bit more, apparent and visible, and people are talking about it, but we need to talk about it more.
Absolutely. And thanks for also pinpointing that, like how it's so important and it's becoming more visible, but we want to do more as well because
Yeah.
it's such a critical topic and for everyone and men especially. And what you shared as well, like how men don't cry and they shouldn't show emotion and it's a sign of weakness. And I've experienced that, well, myself and also with other men that I connected with and I spoke with, and I can see the pain that we all go through. And it's so great to have like an advocate and ambassador to mental health because it's such an important part. And it's so easy to spot physical pain if somebody has like a sprained ankle or a broken hand, and you can see that, or if they have some disability or they're visually or hearing impaired, it's easier to notice these things. But mental health is just completely invisible in the way that it
Yeah.
comes. So it's so important to keep bringing this up and
Yeah.
talking about it.
And I totally agree with you. The thing is, you hit the nail on the head where, you know, pain like broken legs and all that you can see. But so many people walk around with a mask and they'll be at work and they might be so siloed and concentrating, and then they'll go home and then they'll break down, and then they think, right,
Yeah,
I've got to build up the strength to get myself psyched up for going to work tomorrow.
yeah,
And they might be on the train and crying silently, or just dreading or going into the bathroom before they walk into the office and thinking, And it's like, we need to be mindful that there are people out there doing that, but it's like, we need to get the message out clearer. And yeah, so it is something that I'm really passionate about, because there's a lot more people out there suffering than I think statistics even show.
Yeah, I completely agree. I did some research on mental health, especially on men, about about 3 years ago, and the statistics showed that this was in the US. The ratios for women who experience mental health challenges out are completely higher
Yeah.
than men. And I was wondering, I was like, but like I was in a
Mm.
men's group, and all of us had some
Uh,
challenges. So
Yeah.
there's either people not speaking up, or like the
Yeah.
data is distorted. So it's such a big topic that is still in important for us to really share and increase that exposure.
It almost feels like mental health, especially on the male side, is still an embryo stage.
Yeah.
That's the only way that I can explain it, because you don't see much exposure,
Mm,
from a man's perspective,
yeah.
unless I'm missing it, but I don't see as much for men as there has been for women,
Mm,
um, which is quite sad,
yeah.
very
And
sad.
it's so important what you mentioned as well about communication, because even even the way that we might be communicating our emotions or what we're going through and what we're feeling and the experiences, or like if we have challenges at work or at home, sometimes it's just the inability to communicate clearly with our partners or colleagues or friends that really inhibit us from getting to know ourselves better, to be able to overcome these challenges. So
Yeah.
having someone like that to really advocate mental health for men, women, everyone is such a powerful thing to do. It's so great that
Mm.
that you're also doing that.
True. And sometimes you think, okay, the individual might not want to talk to a person face to face, but there's crisis helplines, and you just think, just talk to somebody, don't bottle up, talk to somebody.
Yes,
So yeah.
so important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And maybe just to also touch on, so you mentioned grandmother, mother, courses, coaching, recruitment. Like, how do you do everything? It sounds like you're able
Um,
to manage a lot of
oh
things.
my gosh. I know my team really, they kind of laugh at me every day, because we have a Teams call, um, because I go to the gym at like 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's just one of those things. Um, that's my me time, is when I go to the gym at silly o'clock in the morning, and go do sort of like 45 minutes, an hour workout and stuff like that. I think it's just, if you want to do something, you're going to find time for it, aren't you?
I love that.
I think that's the most simple answer. You know, um, if you don't like something, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But if you like something, then you'll make a plan and you'll make it work. So that's the simplest answer that I can give you.
That's so true. Sometimes we push ourselves to do things that we don't like, and I don't know, sometimes we don't need to do things that we don't like, but rather find the things that we enjoy and just do them all the
Yeah.
time.
And sometimes it's just like, okay, well, you know what? I don't feel like entertaining anybody this weekend. I'm just going to do nothing.
Mm,
And you do nothing.
yeah.
There's not. And I think sometimes, I know I was like this quite a while back. I felt like I needed to do something all the time. I was just like, I'm wasting. When people tell me they've slept until 11 o'clock in the morning, I want to kind of like, is there something wrong with you? Are you feeling sick? Because I'm like, how can you? Half the day is gone. For me, that's like almost midnight, but I could never understand why people can sleep that late. That's just me. That's just in my genes. I just can't. You're wasting time. But then, as you go through life, you think, okay, well, I don't have to do anything today. I
Mm,
can just sit and binge watch Netflix just for a Saturday. It's not, I don't do that every weekend, but it's like,
yeah.
I can do it, you
Yeah.
know? So give yourself that free time. I don't always have to be reporting into my to do list. Just
Yeah,
have a break.
exactly. It sounds like there's that balance of finding things that you enjoy or things that you just want to do because you want to do them, or things that you don't want to do. And you just sit back and you say, today, I'm not going to do anything. And just finding what works for oneself.
Yeah. You have to find a balance. Sometimes it's not easy, but you'll eventually get there when you figured yourself out.
It's been so great chatting with you, and I've learned so much as well about like the resilience and the way that you see things, and taking more challenges and learning and exploring. And I'm so grateful that you shared your wisdom with us. And what we do usually on the podcast is we finish with a tradition, and we get to ask our guests to share words of wisdom or a motto or something that has helped them during challenging times. What would be something that you keep repeating yourself that can help us?
I think one of the key things a person must remember is you need to be true to yourself. You need to be authentic to yourself, not to anyone else, because at the end of the day, you are accountable for your own actions. So be true to yourself, be authentic to yourself, and do what works for you. Because when you do what works for you, you can be the best version of you, which in turn will be the best version you can reflect to those around you. That's what I would probably say.
That's amazing. Authenticity and being yourself and being true to yourself. Thank you for sharing that.
No, it's a big pleasure. Really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
Me too. And is there anything else that maybe I didn't ask or you wanted to share that maybe we didn't cover? Because I think we could just keep going on and deeper. And
I think you're probably right. We could probably just chat and chat. Who knows? We might have another session in that. But I've absolutely enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and it's always great connecting with you, Hassan.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Janet. Appreciate your time and for all the wisdom that you've shared.
No worries. Thanks very much for your time, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining Present Potential. And as always, remember that today is the most important day of your life. Until next time, take care. Thank you for watching and listening to Present Potential. If you found value in this episode, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Join the conversation in the comments and let us know your biggest takeaway. If you'd like to listen to other inspiring stories, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure to also follow us on Instagram under Present Potential Podcast, where you get to see behind the scenes and engage with us.